Hello, welcome to another session in our teaching series, Hidden Facts in Biology. We are talking about the respiratory system, and under this, we'll be looking at anaerobic respiration. In anaerobic respiration, glucose is breaking down inside the cell in the absence of oxygen, giving carbon dioxide, alcohol, and 2 ATP as products. So we are going to be showing this in a chemical equation. So this is a chemical equation. In this equation, we see that glucose is broken down, but in this case, oxygen is absent, and the products are ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide, and energy. Anaerobic respiration is actually a type of cellular respiration. The other type of cellular respiration is the aerobic respiration. And in cellular respiration, glucose is actually broken down to release energy. And as we have seen, in anaerobic respiration, glucose is broken down in the absence of oxygen to produce energy and release byproducts like alcohol and carbon dioxide. Examples of organisms that undergo anaerobic respiration are yeast, bacteria, fungi, and endoparasites such as tapeworm and roundworm. The anaerobic respiration of yeast is referred to as alcoholic fermentation. In this process, the glucose is first converted to pyruvic acid. The pyruvic acid is then reduced to ethanol by the acceptance of hydrogen from NADH. We'll show these steps in equation as seen below. In the first step, we see that glucose is broken down by the process of glycolysis to give pyruvic acid energy in the form of ATP and 2 moles of hydrogen molecule. And in the second step, we see that the pyruvic acid accepts the hydrogen from NADH and it then becomes an alcohol. NADH is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide with a hydrogen, and when this hydrogen is given to pyruvic acid, the NADH is reduced. There is another type of anaerobic respiration. This is known as the lactic acid fermentation. In this type of fermentation, no carbon dioxide is given off. Instead, pyruvic acid combines with hydrogen from NADH to produce lactic acid, as shown below. As seen in this chemical equation, the pyruvic acid accepts hydrogen from NADH and is reduced to lactic acid. Lactic acid fermentation occurs in the cell of human when there is not enough oxygen available for the aerobic stages of respiration. Lactic acid fermentation also occurs in some bacteria which live in anaerobic habitats such as the bottom of ponds and sea. It occurs in the muscle of man and animals after a very fast race or strenuous exercise. And during such exercises, enough oxygen is not supplied to the exercising muscle for the complete oxidation of glucose to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And as such, instead, lactic acid and a little energy are released. And as the lactic acid accumulates, the increase in the level of acidity in the muscles causes muscle fatigue and cramps. The athlete, however, recovers when oxygen is carried to the muscle cells, and the oxygen oxidizes the lactic acid to pyruvic acid, and the pyruvic acid is then oxidized by the supplied oxygen also to give carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Now let's look at the concept of oxygen depth. What is oxygen depth? The oxygen needed to oxidize lactic acid to pyruvic acid and from pyruvic acid to CO2 that is carbon dioxide, and H2O, that is water, and chemical energy is known as oxygen depth. Just like the example we look at earlier on, that is that of the athlete. When athletes, for example, undergo strenuous exercises, we made mention of the fact that there is a build-up of lactic acids, and this causes muscles to ache. Oxygen is needed to get rid of this lactic acid. The oxygen needed for this purpose is what is known as oxygen depth. Some of the activities that can result to oxygen depth include running, boxing, swimming, etc. Having a look at the concept of oxygen depth, we will be taking another concept, and this is the concept of residual air. What is residual air? Residual air is the amount of air that remains in the lungs after expiration or exhalation. It is the portion of the air which cannot be expelled, even by the most violent respiratory effort. What is the importance of this residual air? This residual air is important because it prevents the lungs from collapsing, and also it enables more oxygen to diffuse into bloodstreams during respiration and inhalation. So now we are going to be looking at the process involved in the breakdown of glucose in the cell of living organism to produce energy, that is ATP. And this process are grouped into two, including the anaerobic process and the aerobic process. We are first going to be taking the anaerobic process. In the anaerobic process, the glucose is broken down in a series of stepwise reactions into pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid is a 3-carbon compound. This is done in the presence of the enzyme known as hexokinase. This process takes place in the absence of oxygen, and it is referred to as anaerobic glycolysis. The exact number of energy gained here is 2 ATP. The pyruvic acid is further decarboxylated to acetyl fragments. Acetyl fragments are 2-carbon compound. So the next process involved in the breakdown of glucose we are going to be looking at is the aerobic process. In the mitochondria, the acetyl group, that is the CH3CO, becomes attached, giving acetyl-CoA, and carbon dioxide is liberated. This happens after the reaction of pyruvic acid with coenzyme A and undergoes a series of changes whereby oxygen and hydrogen combine to form water. ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, are generated from ADP. ATP, that is the adenosine triphosphate molecule, are generated from ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate and phosphate. We show this in the formula below. So this chemical equation shows how ATP is being generated from glucose. We see the glucose being broken down to give carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Also in yeast cells, glucose is broken down into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy in the absence of oxygen, and this process also produces energy. During strenuous exercise, where oxygen in the muscles are so depleted, pyruvic acid is converted to lactic acid. This is further oxidized to liberate energy. So now we have looked at the process involved in the breakdown of glucose in the cell of living organism to produce energy, which is in the form of ATP. Now we are going to look at condition under which glycogen can be converted to glucose to produce energy. The first one is during exercise, when the body must have used up the available glucose in the tissues. The second condition is when the glucose level is low due to starvation or as a result of sickness or due to fasting. And the last condition is when the adrenaline level is high, which would have consumed the available glucose due to fright or anger. The next subject matter we'll be talking about is the importance of energy that is ATP, that is released during respiration. The following are the importance of energy released during respiration. Number one, ATP is used for work such as swimming, running, flying, talking, etc. The second importance of energy is in the transmission of nerve impulses. This transmission of nerve impulses or messages requires energy in the form of ATP. ATP is used to produce heat to keep the body warm in warm-blooded animals. In the electric fish, known as the Malapterurus electricus, ATP is being converted into electrical energy, which form electric current used for capturing of their prey and also for defense. ATP is used for active transport also. ATP is also used to produce light in some animals such as fireflies. ATP is used for the synthesis of proteins, starch, cellulose, fat and oil. ATP provides energy used for cell division. These are the importance of energy or ATP released during respiration. This brings us to the end of this session, and now we are going to be taking some questions, starting with the examples. The first example here says, the process of anaerobic respiration of yeast in sugar solution is known as A. Oxidation, B. Fermentation, C. Tissue respiration, D. Alcohol production, E. Decomposition. The answer to this question is B. Fermentation is the anaerobic breakdown of sugar by microorganisms such as yeast to produce energy and alcohol. So our next example, it says during anaerobic respiration in skeletal muscles, pyruvic acid is A. Reduced to lactic acid, B. Oxidized to ethanol, C. Oxidized to lactic acid, D. Reduced to water. The answer to this question is A. Reduced to lactic acid, and this is because in the absence of oxygen, pyruvic acid in skeletal muscles is reduced to lactic acid. Now to our next question, it says when a mammal respires anaerobically for a long time, A. Pyruvic acid is converted into acetyl-CoA, B. More energy is released from fats in the body, C. Lactic acid accumulates in the muscles, D. The Krebs cycle is fully completed. The answer to this question is C, because when a mammal respires anaerobically for a long time, lactic acid begins to accumulate in the muscle. So our next example, it says which of the following is not a product of fermentation of glucose? A. Energy, B. Alcohol, C. Lactic acid, D. Carbon dioxide. The answer to this question is C, because in the fermentation of glucose by yeast, lactic acid is not a product. So our next question, it says the products of respiration are A. Nitrogen and water, B. Nitrogen and carbon dioxide, C. Water and oxygen, D. Carbon dioxide and water. The answer to this question is D. The products of respiration are carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So our next question, it says the role of ATP include all the following activities except A. Provision of energy to do work in living organisms, B. Transmission of nerve impulse, C. Keeping the body warm in homothermic animals, D. Producing water during aerobic respiration. The answer to this question is D. Producing water during aerobic respiration is not a role of ATP. All other options A to C are roles of ATP. So our next question says anaerobic respiration results in the production of A. More energy than aerobic respiration, B. No energy, C. An equal amount of energy to aerobic respiration, D. Less energy than aerobic respiration. The answer to this question is D, because anaerobic respiration produces less energy as compared to aerobic respiration. We have come to the end of the examples. Now we are going to be looking at the exercise. These questions in this exercise are gotten from our textbook in Hidden Facts in Biology in pages 173 through 174. The answers to these questions have been provided in the answer section of the book, both in soft copies and hard copy. Try and get them so that you can check if your answers are correct or not. Thank you for listening.